Have you ever noticed how silence can say more than words? Someone pulls away, stops replying, or vanishes without explanation, and suddenly your mind starts racing. You wonder if you did something wrong, if you should chase, if you should explain yourself. But what if I told you that their silence isn't about you at all? It's about them. It's like a chessboard where your opponent suddenly stops moving, not because the game is over, but because the stillness forces you to second-guess every piece you've placed. Or think of a frozen lake in winter, calm on the surface, but beneath that silence the pressure is building, waiting to crack. That's the power of silence. It unsettles, confuses, and reveals more than noise ever could. Sometimes silence is a test. Sometimes it's avoidance. Other times it's a way to control you, to make you doubt yourself, or to reveal who they really are. And if you're not careful, you'll mistake their silence as a reflection of your worth, when in reality, it's a reflection of theirs. So what's truly happening when someone goes silent? And how do you protect your peace without chasing, without begging, without saying a word? Stay until the end, because the last truth will change how you see silence forever. Let's get started. Number 1, they're testing your reaction. Let's talk about one of the most common reasons someone suddenly goes silent. They're testing your reaction. Silence, in this case, isn't about peace or reflection. It's a tactic, a game, and at its core, a test. When someone stops responding, ignores your presence, or withdraws without explanation, it often has little to do with you and everything to do with what they want to see from you. Do you panic? Do you chase after them? Do you lose control and beg for their attention? That's the trap. They want to measure your reaction to their absence. Here's the truth. Silence is often a trap designed to pull you out of your center. Some people weaponize it, using it as a way to create uncertainty. They want you to feel off balance, questioning what you did wrong, wondering how to fix things. But make no mistake, when someone goes silent like this, their goal isn't resolution, it's control. They know silence can be louder than words, and they want to see if you'll hand over your power in the discomfort of that silence. And this is where Stoic wisdom steps in. Marcus Aurelius said, "He who angers you controls you." Maintain your center. Think about that. When someone uses silence to provoke you, they're trying to pull the strings of your emotions. If you react with anger, fear, or desperation, you've given them exactly what they want, proof that they can manipulate your peace. But when you remain calm, when you refuse to let their silence dictate your stability, the power dynamic flips. Suddenly, their test fails because you didn't take the bait. Let me share a story. A friend of mine, let's call her Amanda, was in a relationship where silence was used as a weapon. Whenever there was even the smallest disagreement, her partner would shut down, stop replying, and vanish for days. At first, Amanda would chase, sending long texts, calling repeatedly, apologizing for things she didn't even do. And every time she did, it reinforced his behavior. He knew he could control her emotions by simply withdrawing. But one day, Amanda decided to respond differently. The next time he went silent, she didn't chase. She didn't text, didn't call, didn't panic. Instead, she focused on herself. She went about her day calmly, without feeding into the game. And you know what happened? He came back, confused and unsettled. For the first time, the silence didn't give him control. It exposed his insecurity. So, how do you handle this tactic? First, recognize it for what it is. A test, not a reflection of your worth. Second, refuse to react emotionally. When you maintain your composure, you're sending a message far louder than panic ever could. I cannot be controlled by silence. And finally, shift your focus inward. Instead of obsessing over why they're silent, remind yourself that your peace doesn't depend on anyone else's communication. At the end of the day, silence only has power if you give it power. When someone goes quiet to test you, the best response is calm indifference, because the moment you stop chasing, the test ends, and in that moment, you reclaim your peace, your dignity, and your strength. Silence doesn't control you. You control how you respond to it. Number 2, they're avoiding accountability. Let's talk about another hidden reason someone suddenly goes silent. They're avoiding accountability. Disappearing after a conflict, pulling away when things get tough, or vanishing right after they've done something wrong isn't about peace, reflection, or needing space. It's about escape. Silence, in this case, becomes their shield, their way of hiding from responsibility. And here's the hard truth. When someone goes quiet after hurting you, it's rarely innocence they're protecting. It's guilt. Here's the truth. Disappearing after conflict is easier than admitting fault. Confrontation requires courage, maturity, and self-awareness. It means saying, I was wrong, or I shouldn't have done that. But for people who fear accountability, silence feels safer. If they don't respond, they don't have to explain. If they vanish, they don't have to face your emotions, your disappointment, or your boundaries. Their silence doesn't mean they're right. It means they lack the strength to own up to what they've done. This is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Seneca said, "Cowards hide in silence. The wise confront their faults." Think about that. Silence after wrongdoing is cowardice, plain and simple. It's an attempt to run from the truth. But the Stoic path is different. The wise face their errors directly, not because it's comfortable, but because it's the only way to grow. Avoiding accountability doesn't erase mistakes. It magnifies them. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him David, was close friends with someone who often crossed boundaries. One day, this friend betrayed his trust in a major way by sharing something deeply personal that David had confided in him. When David confronted him, instead of apologizing, his friend went silent. Days passed, weeks. No explanation, no acknowledgement, nothing. At first, David doubted himself. Did I overreact? Was I too harsh? But over time, he realized what was happening. His friend wasn't silent because he was innocent. He was silent because facing David meant admitting he was wrong. That silence wasn't strength. It was weakness. And ultimately, it revealed the truth about the friendship. It wasn't built on mutual respect, but on convenience. So how do you handle people who avoid accountability by going silent? First, don't chase them. Their silence is their choice. It's not your job to drag them into maturity. Second, don't mistake silence for resolution. Just because they refuse to acknowledge what they did doesn't mean it didn't happen. And third, protect your peace. If someone repeatedly chooses silence over accountability, it's a pattern, not an accident. And no relationship can thrive where responsibility is constantly avoided. At the end of the day, silence after wrongdoing speaks louder than any apology. It tells you everything you need to know about someone's character. Because when faced with their mistakes, strong people speak, weak people hide. And if someone can't respect you enough to own their faults, then your silence, your decision to walk away, becomes the most powerful response of all. Number 3, they're seeking power over you. Let's talk about one of the most subtle but manipulative reasons people go silent. They're seeking power over you. Silence in this case isn't avoidance, and it's not even about peace. It's about control. By withholding words, answers, or acknowledgement, they create an invisible leash on your emotions. You're left wondering, why aren't they responding? Did I do something wrong? What's going to happen next? And while you're stuck in that loop of confusion, they've already achieved their goal. They're living rent-free in your mind without saying a single word. Here's the truth. Confusion gives them control. When you start asking why, when your thoughts spiral around their silence, they've already won. They no longer need to argue or explain. They just need to stay quiet. And the more you chase clarity, the stronger their hold over you becomes. It's not communication, it's manipulation. They're not trying to resolve the situation. They're trying to keep you unbalanced, second-guessing, and dependent on their eventual response. This is where Stoic wisdom becomes a shield. Epictetus said, "The disturbed mind has given away its power." Think about that. When your peace is shaken by someone else's silence, you've already handed them control. But when you remain calm, when you refuse to be disturbed, you take that power back. Their silence stops being a weapon and becomes meaningless, because it only has power if you allow it to control your emotions. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him Chris, was dating someone who used silence as a tactic. Anytime Chris disagreed or stood up for himself, she would suddenly stop replying. Hours turned into days. During that silence, Chris found himself replaying every detail. Did I say the wrong thing? Was I too harsh? Should I apologize? He'd send long messages, trying to fix what wasn't broken, trying to win back her attention. And every time he did, she came back with even more control over the relationship. Eventually, Chris realized this wasn't about love, it was about power. The silence wasn't space, it was a leash. So he flipped the script. The next time she went quiet, Chris didn't chase. He didn't beg for clarity. He simply carried on with his life. And just like that, her silence lost its effect, because it could no longer control him. So how do you handle people who use silence to gain power? First, recognize the tactic. If silence consistently comes after conflict or when you assert yourself, it's not a coincidence, it's a strategy. Second, refuse to play the game. Don't let their silence control your emotions or dictate your actions. If they choose silence, let them have it. And third, protect your peace. Instead of filling the silence with anxious thoughts, fill it with focus on yourself, your growth, your priorities, your strength. At the end of the day, silence used as control is a trap, but only if you step into it. When you refuse to be disturbed, when you keep your mind calm and steady, their silence becomes powerless. And in that moment, you remind yourself of the greatest Stoic truth. No one can control your peace unless you hand it over. If you've watched the video this far, don't forget to leave a comment with a "thank God" and give it a like if you enjoyed the content. Your support means a lot and motivates me to keep creating more interesting videos. I hope you find inspiration in them and that we continue learning together. Thank you for your support. Number 4, they're creating a false narrative. Let's talk about one of the most manipulative uses of silence. They're creating a false narrative. When someone refuses to respond, when they shut down completely, it doesn't always mean neutrality. Often it's intentional. Their silence is a way of twisting the story without ever saying a word. By staying quiet, they let the weight of that silence suggest something. You are the problem. They don't need to defend themselves. They don't need to deny anything. Their refusal to speak plants doubt in your mind and in the minds of others. Suddenly, the story shifts, not because they explained their side, but because their silence implied guilt belonged to you. Here's the truth. By saying nothing, they imply you are the problem. It's a silent accusation. Instead of owning up to their role in the conflict, they let silence create the illusion that you're the aggressor, the unreasonable one, the unstable one. And if you're not careful, you begin to fall into the trap of defending yourself against a charge they never even spoke out loud. You replay conversations, over-explain your actions, and try to prove your innocence. But that's the trick. The more you defend yourself against silence, the more it looks like you're guilty. This is where Stoic wisdom brings clarity. Epictetus said, "Do not waste energy defending your truth. Time reveals character." Think about that. You don't have to justify yourself endlessly. You don't have to fight against someone's silence. Over time, patterns emerge, and true character is revealed. Someone who manipulates with silence will eventually expose themselves because truth always surfaces. The Stoic path is about holding your ground in calmness, not about scrambling to correct the narrative someone else is trying to imply through their absence of words. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Jennifer, had a co-worker who constantly used silence as a weapon in the office. Anytime there was a disagreement, this co-worker would refuse to respond, giving Jennifer the cold shoulder for days. Soon, whispers started. People began assuming that Jennifer must have done something wrong, since the other person wasn't saying anything. At first, Jennifer felt the need to explain herself to everyone, clarifying what happened, defending her side. But after months of the same cycle, she realized what was happening. The silence wasn't neutral, it was manipulative. It was a performance designed to make her look guilty. So Jennifer changed her approach. Instead of defending herself, she let her work, her professionalism, and her calm demeanor speak for her. Over time, people saw the pattern for themselves. They noticed who avoided accountability, who stirred quiet conflict, and who remained steady. And in the end, the truth revealed itself without Jennifer wasting her energy trying to fight it. So how do you handle people who create false narratives with silence? First, don't play their game. Don't scramble to defend yourself against accusations that were never spoken. Second, stand firm in your truth. Your actions and consistency will speak louder over time than their silence ever could. And third, trust that character reveals itself. People may be fooled for a while, but in the long run, the one who manipulates with silence exposes their own weakness. At the end of the day, silence can be louder than words, but only if you give it meaning. When someone uses silence to twist the story, let your calmness be your response. Because eventually, time unmasks false narratives, and the truth will stand on its own. Number 5. They're emotionally immature. Let's talk about one of the clearest truths revealed when someone goes silent. They're emotionally immature. Strong people face discomfort. They talk, they explain, they communicate. Weak people vanish. Silence, in this case, isn't a sign of strength. It's a mask for avoidance. When someone refuses to communicate, when they retreat into silence instead of resolving conflict, what they're really showing you is not power. It's immaturity. Here's the truth. Silence, instead of communication, reveals avoidance, not strength. It's easy to disappear. It's easy to shut down and pretend the problem doesn't exist. But it takes courage to sit in discomfort, to face difficult conversations, and to express emotions honestly. Silence feels powerful in the moment, but in reality, it's an escape. It avoids responsibility, avoids vulnerability, and avoids the work of building stronger relationships. And while they may think their silence makes them look in control, what it really reveals is their inability to handle emotional challenges with maturity. This is where Stoic wisdom offers perspective. Seneca once said, "Only the shallow flee from discomfort. The wise face it." Think about that. Running from communication, hiding behind silence, is shallow. It shows fear of facing truth. But wisdom is found in those who can sit with discomfort, who can express themselves with honesty even when it's hard. Real strength is not in disappearing, it's in standing firm, listening, and speaking with clarity. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him Brian, was in a long-term relationship where silence was a constant weapon. Whenever there was conflict, his partner would shut down, refusing to talk for days. At first, Brian thought maybe it was just her way of processing. But over time, he realized this pattern wasn't about reflection. It was about avoidance. Instead of working through issues, she would retreat into silence, leaving him with the weight of carrying the relationship alone. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was punishing. And what it revealed was clear. She wasn't ready for the level of emotional maturity a healthy relationship requires. Eventually, Brian learned the hard truth. Communication is the foundation of connection, and silence in the face of conflict isn't strength, it's immaturity. So how do you deal with emotionally immature silence? First, don't romanticize it. Don't mistake silence for depth or strength. Recognize it for what it is, avoidance. Second, set boundaries. If someone refuses to communicate, make it clear that silence is not an acceptable substitute for dialogue. And third, protect your own maturity. Don't lower yourself to their level by playing the same game. Stay calm, stay clear, and stay honest. At the end of the day, true strength isn't found in retreat, it's found in presence. The mature don't vanish when things get hard. They step up, they talk, they listen, they face reality. When someone chooses silence instead of communication, it's not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their immaturity. And once you recognize that, you stop chasing explanations in silence and start valuing people who have the strength to face life directly. If you found this valuable, hit like and subscribe for more powerful insights. Number 6. They never valued the bond. Let's talk about one of the harshest truths revealed when someone goes silent. They never valued the bond in the first place. Because here's the thing. People who are truly invested in you, who respect you, and who value the relationship you share, don't just vanish without reason. They don't cut contact overnight. They don't go silent when you need them most. And they don't disappear without explanation. If they can walk away so easily, if their silence comes without care or closure, it tells you something deeper. Their heart was never fully in it. Here's the truth. People who can cut contact without reason were never deeply invested. Their silence is proof. It doesn't matter what words they used before, how convincing they seemed when they promised loyalty, or how warm their presence once felt. When it comes down to it, actions always reveal truth, and silence in this case is an action. By refusing to communicate, by vanishing without thought, they show that the bond wasn't as meaningful to them as it was to you. That realization hurts, but it also sets you free. This is where Stoic wisdom shines through. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Let go of those who could not carry you in thought, let alone in presence." Think about that. If someone cannot even hold you in thought, cannot respect you enough to acknowledge your presence, then their absence is not your loss, it's your liberation. Stoicism teaches us not to cling to illusions of loyalty that never existed. The wise accept that not every bond is real, and not every person who enters your life is meant to stay. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him Michael, had a lifelong friend, someone he trusted for decades. They shared everything: triumphs, struggles, late-night conversations. But when Michael went through one of the hardest seasons of his life, that friend went silent. No calls, no texts, no check-ins. Weeks passed, then months. Michael finally realized the truth. The bond he thought was unbreakable wasn't mutual. To him, it was loyalty. To the other person, it was convenience. That silence revealed more than words ever could. It exposed the reality that the connection had never been as deep as Michael believed. Painful? Yes, but also clarifying. It taught him to stop holding on to people who never truly held him in return. So how do you respond when silence proves they never valued the bond? First, accept it. Don't waste energy chasing someone who never considered you a priority. Second, stop rewriting the story. Their silence isn't an accident, and it's not your fault. It's evidence of their lack of investment. And third, redirect your loyalty. Value those who show up consistently, those who communicate, those who prove through actions that they truly care. At the end of the day, silence isn't always empty. It's full of truth. If someone can disappear without hesitation, they were never as committed as you thought. And while that realization may sting, it also gives you strength. Because once you see who truly values you, you'll never again waste yourself on those who don't. Their silence is not rejection, it's revelation. Number 7. They want you to feel unworthy. Let's talk about one of the cruelest reasons someone might go silent. They want you to feel unworthy. This kind of silence isn't about space, peace, or reflection. It's about punishment. It's their way of making you question yourself, doubt your value, and wonder if you've done something wrong. They disappear, not because they can't talk, but because they want you to chase. They want you to sit with uncertainty, replay every word you said, and shrink yourself in the hope of earning their attention back. Here's the truth. Disappearing is their way of making you doubt yourself, hoping you'll beg for attention. It's emotional manipulation. By withholding communication, they create a power imbalance where you're left scrambling for their approval. And if you give in, if you beg, over-explain, or chase, they feel validated. Their silence becomes proof in their mind that they have control over you. But what it really proves is the opposite. It proves their immaturity, their insecurity, and their inability to build real connection without using control tactics. This is where Stoic wisdom becomes your anchor. Epictetus said, "Never depend on the silence of others to define your worth." Think about that. Your value doesn't decrease because someone refuses to acknowledge it. Silence cannot diminish your worth unless you let it. The wise understand that self-respect comes from within, not from the attention, approval, or validation of others. When someone goes silent to make you feel unworthy, the greatest victory is not chasing them. It's standing firm in your own dignity. Let me share a story. A woman I know, let's call her Rachel, was dating someone who often disappeared without reason. Days would pass with no calls, no messages, nothing. Every time, Rachel felt the same knot in her chest. Did I do something wrong? Was I too much? Not enough? And so she would reach out first, apologizing for things she never even did, begging for clarity, begging for connection. And every time, he came back, but with even more power, because her reaction confirmed his tactic worked. One day, Rachel decided to break the cycle. The next time he went silent, she didn't chase. She didn't call, didn't text, didn't beg. She poured her energy into herself, her work, her health, her friendships. And when he finally returned, expecting her to be waiting, he found something different: her silence. And that silence wasn't manipulation. It was freedom. It was proof that she had reclaimed her worth. So, how do you handle people who go silent to make you feel unworthy? First, recognize the manipulation. Their silence isn't about you, it's about control. Second, refuse to beg. If they want to create distance, let them. Don't collapse into proving your worth to someone who doesn't see it. And third, ground yourself in your own value. Build your peace on your principles, your growth, and your self-respect, not on their unpredictable attention. At the end of the day, silence used as punishment is a reflection of their weakness, not your worth. The moment you stop chasing, the moment you refuse to beg, is the moment you break free of their game. Because no one's silence has the power to define you unless you hand it over. Stand firm, respect yourself, and remember, your worth is not up for debate. Number 8. They're showing you their true character. Let's talk about the final and perhaps most important reason behind silence. They're showing you their true character. See, silence doesn't hide who someone is. In fact, it reveals it. Words can be polished, promises can be rehearsed, but silence strips away the mask. It shows you how they behave when no one is watching, when pressure rises, when the easy option is to disappear instead of standing firm. Pay attention, because what people don't say often speaks louder than what they do. Here's the truth. Silence doesn't hide who they are. It reveals it. When someone cares about you, when they value the bond, they will show up. They will communicate, even if it's uncomfortable. But when they don't, their silence tells you everything you need to know. It reveals their priorities, their respect or lack of it for you, and their willingness to engage in honesty. The absence of words becomes its own confession. And this is where Stoic wisdom offers perspective. Marcus Aurelius said, "A man's worth is revealed more in silence than in words." Think about that. Anyone can talk a good game, but silence unmasks what lies beneath. The Stoic sees silence not as a void, but as a message. If someone's silence consistently brings you pain, neglect, or doubt, then you don't need their words to understand their character. You already have your answer. Let me share a story. A man I know, let's call him Daniel, went through a tough period in his life. He was struggling financially, emotionally, and personally. He noticed something interesting. The people who always had the right words before suddenly went quiet. Friends who claimed to be like family disappeared when he needed them most. At first, Daniel was crushed. He thought maybe he had done something wrong. But over time, he realized this. Their silence wasn't about him. It was about them. It revealed who they really were when loyalty required effort. And while painful, it was also freeing, because Daniel no longer wasted energy on people whose silence exposed the truth. So how do you handle silence when it reveals someone's true character? First, accept the revelation. Don't ignore it. Don't make excuses. Silence is information. Treat it that way. Second, stop clinging to potential. People show you who they are through their actions or their lack of them. Believe it. And third, redirect your energy. Invest in people whose presence matches their promises, whose silence never makes you question your worth, because their consistency speaks louder than absence ever could. At the end of the day, silence is never neutral. It's a message. And when someone goes silent, they may think they're hiding, but in reality, they're revealing the deepest truth of all, their character. And once you see that truth, the choice becomes clear. Don't chase words that aren't spoken. Don't beg for attention that isn't given. Instead, let their silence teach you, guide you, and free you. Because sometimes, silence is the clearest answer you'll ever get. If you believe this video can help others, give it a like. It helps the YouTube algorithm show it to more people. And don't forget to subscribe for more awesome content coming your way. Share your thoughts in the comments. I will definitely reply.